Well, I can't believe I'm saying this, but it has been a very long time since I've done a piece to camera. Unfortunately for me, the last couple of years, fishing just hasn't been a priority. I've had other stuff going on, home life and work, whatnot. But we're here, we're back, and we're doing it. It's 2023. Welcome to the Dell, a hunt for a 50. So, what's the plan? Well, this film is going to be an entire season on my syndicate. I'm going to film the entire year's fishing. I'm not going to be lazy. Every time I come, I'm going to bring all the gear. We're going to get it all documented, piece it together into one big film, and hopefully, just hopefully, fingers crossed, it has the potential to be something real special. So let me give you a little bit of info on the lake we're fishing. The Dell is my syndicate for this year. We're coming into my second full season on here now. Did a winter ticket before that too. The lake itself was dug 2004, 2005, if my research is correct. And Scott, I'm going to hold you responsible if that's wrong, mate. It's about 18 acres in size and we're estimating around about 100 fish. There could be more, could be less. But the reason I'm fishing here is because right now it holds the potential to have 3 50-pounders. And that's insane just saying it. I got lucky last year, I did nick one. We'll have a full recap and I'll fill you in on all of the sessions that we did before this. But yeah, 3 50-pounders. There's probably a dozen, if not more, 40-pounders, and I can't even count how many 30s. The stockies are going into, they're piling on a weight, so it's really exciting. Right now it's in February. I've come down end of February for a 2-night session. But before we get into all that, I feel like I need to give you a little bit of background on what's been going on down here previous to this film. So, I joined the Dell in 2021 on a winter ticket. That starts 1st of November. Was real keen to get down, so I came down on the 4th of November for a 3-night trip. When I arrived, there was a couple of anglers on the road bank and the airfield bank, so I decided to slot into a swim called The Point. I figured it would give me a nice view of the lake. I could sit and watch the water for my first weekend on here. Didn't really know much about the place, but it gave me a good vantage point, and obviously, like I say, it was all about building that knowledge. Unfortunately, that 3-night session, I blanked. I didn't see anything, nobody had anything. But it wasn't long. I think a couple of days later, a fish did come out on the airfield bank and it was a 40-pounder. I did get back down on the 20th of November. And obviously following the form of the lake, I jumped in airfield 1. I came down with my mate as well, who did the winter ticket with me. He was in airfield 2. That was another 2-night blank, unfortunately for me, but my mate did nick one, a low 20 out of airfield 2, and that was the end of that session. Again, it passed, didn't see anything. I think this place in the winter is pretty difficult. The next time I got down was actually March. I think it was around about the 24th, 25th. It was just an overnighter, 24 hours, and that ended up in the ramps. Again, it was bitterly cold, northerlies, didn't see anything, didn't have anything. And yeah, it was tough going, I'm not gonna lie. Unfortunately, that was the end of my winter ticket. I hadn't caught anything, I hadn't even seen anything other than the one fish that my mate had caught very early on in the winter ticket. But I came down in March, paid my ticket and started my full ticket. So 1st of April come round and it was time to get back down. I was keen and eager and I weren't gonna let it beat me. It was actually the 4th of April. I did 3 nights in a swim called White Bags. Now, I think over the course of the winter, the only fish that I'd known that had come out from this end of the lake. This end does get a bit weedy during the summer and obviously the autumn, and I think it holds a little bit of weed going into winter, so the fish tend to push down here just for that little bit of cover. So like I say, a lot of fish had come out down this end, so my thoughts was if I get in White Bags, I can fish that zone and we might pick one off. I knew I was coming down to do an overnight the following week between work, so I decided I wanted to put a little bit of bait out and obviously drop back onto that the following week. So I came down with the intentions of doing just that. I put one rod out long, put a load of bait out. That rod actually didn't do any bites. The first night passed, I had another 2 rods just off of the spot. Second day I decided to switch 2 rods over to solid bags and start roaming them around. And it was the second night I actually caught my first fish, which was a 17/8 stocky. And you can tell how long I'd been out fishing and out filming and photography because I actually fluffed the night shots. Yes, I did a nil spooner. I fluffed them, they was out of focus, the flash gun didn't sync, and I actually ruined my first fish pictures from the Dell. But nevertheless, it was a lovely fish and it was good to be off the mark. Going into that night, I did exactly the same thing again. 2 rods out on solid bags, roaming them around, and 1 on the baited spot. And I was rewarded again. I actually woke up that morning to another take, and it was a 27-pound heavily scaled mirror. Again, I think it was a stocky, but it's an absolutely beautiful fish. And that was it, account open, we'd done it, first session, and I think that gave me the kick I needed to want to get back down. Like I say, I had the plan, so I did come down on the 12th of April for that work overnighter, but nothing happened. I dropped onto the same swim, white bags, on a baited spot. I did put 2 rods out on solid bags and just 1 back on the bait spot, but nothing happened, and obviously I had to be up early for work. I think the next time I got back down was the 22nd of April. It was a weekend session, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and I actually ended up in a swim called G-Spot. Now, when I got here, I came around to see my mate Scott, who was actually in Airfield 2, where we are today. He'd moved on to fish from G-Spot, and then they'd moved back off of him, back up to the other end of the lake. So he said, look, get yourself in G-Spot. They're up and down now. There has been a couple out this morning on zigs, so yeah, you can stand a good chance. So I dropped into G-Spot, got the rods out, flicked the zigs out. I think I was fishing about 7-foot zigs. And after about half hour, I got itchy feet. It just wasn't sitting right. The fish had been caught on 7-footers in the morning. They were still seen up and down that bank, but no one was having anything. So I reeled a rod in and dropped the zig down 1.5 foot. Put it back out, and it was only out 20-25 minutes, and it was away. And it was my 3rd fish on my 2nd session of the season, and it was 34-pound mirror, 35 pound, I can't remember. I'm sure I'll put it up on the pictures, but yeah, it was a lovely fish, another stocky as well. So yeah, I'd had a stocky, a 27 and a 30, or mid 30 should I say. So yeah, that was 2nd session, everything was going well. Buzz was well and truly back, and then life happened, unfortunately. I didn't fish for the rest of the year. Personal life got a little bit messy. I ain't gonna divulge into it, but yeah, world got turned upside down, and fishing again took a back seat. Work took over, I had to get stuck into that, obviously, to get my head right, and yeah, just didn't do any fishing. So, wasted pretty much all of the year, and then I came down on the 13th of August. I had, I think it was 4 nights at my disposal. I was out of tune of the lake. I didn't know what was going on. I'd actually muted the WhatsApp group. So again, completely and utterly oblivious, fresh start, blank canvas. After that really good start at the start of the season, spawning had passed, the weed had come up, and yeah, we was now heading into autumn. So I arrived, and there was an angler, Matty I think it was, he was in white bags, a couple of anglers in G-Spot on the lodge bank, and I think there was an angler in the point as well. So I walked round, got down to Matty, started chatting to him, and I actually see 3 or 4 shows out in front of the airfield. And I was like, Matt, they're out there. He's like, mate, it's so weedy. Like ridiculously weedy. At this point the weed had come up, we'd had a really hot summer and it was choked. So I don't think many people had been fishing it, but I came round, had a look, settled on Airfield 2. I did look at 1, but it was a little bit close to Matty, so I moved up to 2. And yeah, I set about, I flicked 3 chods out at the fish in the weed and just sprinkled Fran stick to cut the boilies over the top. And that was it. I didn't want to do no spomming or leading around. I just flicked them out at the shows. And was fishing basically. I was just happy to be there, I think. That night passed, nothing, just a couple of liners. But what happened next was incredible. It was my best piece of angling ever, and it completely and utterly blew my mind. So, first night passed, nothing on the chods. Woke up, still fish there, still showing. Counted about 15 shows in the morning. It was insane. They was everywhere. They was all in the weed. They was pushing the weed beds. I could see their backs out of it. They was just all over me. So I decided I needed to get a little bit of bait out and draw these fish down because we needed a take. So I spent the best part of about 2 hours leading up with just a bare lead on my marker rod. Couldn't find anything. It was plugging in everywhere. Could find spots short, but not where the fish was, and I wanted to be somewhere in that zone. So I actually pushed out to the edge of my water. You get 60 yards in the airfield swims. So pushed out 60 yards, bang on. And after about 40 minutes of leading up, I stumbled across a spot. Could be no more than a couple of foot by a couple of foot. literally as the lead hit the water and it hit the clip, if I didn't pull the rod back, it would plug in. So I was actually hitting the wall of weed at the back of the spot, flicking it over and dropping it into the O onto this lovely clean gravel spot. I decided I'd put 2 rods on it, nice and tight. I was fishing braid at the time as well. It was my first session on the new Thinking Anglers braid. Yeah, 2 rods on it, lovely. 10 spoms, particle, barrels, and then I put 2 wafters over the top. And that was me. I was out fishing. The 3rd rod I flicked on I think it was a bag down a margin. And yeah, that was it. Went into that night happy. So, 2nd morning, wakes up to a take at about 5, half past 5. Still dark, pitch black. And it felt big. Straight in the weed, got it out of the weed. By this point of the year, the farmer had been pumping a Dell, so the water was right down in the margins at this end because all the wind had been blowing up this way. There was about a 12-foot bank of weed in front of the peg. Obviously being out of tune, didn't think to clear it before I started. Anyway, played this fish in, didn't see it the whole time, just felt heavy, hugged the bottom, and it buried its head straight in this weed in front of me. I'm like, what do I do? What do I do? Like, I need to get this fish in. So I've decided to crank down and just pull it up. I've got the net on resting on the top of the weed, and I've gave it a pull, and it's just popped, came up, scooped the net under it. Stoked the net in the silt, didn't even look at the fish, just went back up, flicked the kettle on. As I flicked the kettle on, I've heard water, eruption, look round, and the net is flat. Luckily I dug it in the silt enough to hold it, so I've run down, steadied it all up. I've actually propped the retention sling under the spreader block to keep the net up. Kettle's boiling, so I've run back up the bank, turned the kettle off, and it's done it again. Absolutely crazy. Turned around, retention sling's gone over, net's now flat again on the water, and this fish is trying to bust out. So I'm like, right, I need to put this in a bag. So text the bailiff, said, look, it's getting light in about half hour. I'm all right to bag this fish. It's going nuts in the net. Jake was like, yeah, that's fine, mate. So I've gone down, I've had a look, and as I peeled the net back, there's just this donkey in the net. Like, there's no other word to describe it. There's just this long, wide donkey. And I'm filling the net back. I've actually sent a video to my mate Wes. Absolutely insane. I was just like, oh my God, it's got to be 40. So I put it in the retention sling. By this point I've moved it, I've got the mat down there at the water's edge. I put it in the mat, retention sling, took the net out, and it got the better of me. I was like, should I just hold it up on the scales quickly? So I've put the scales on, zeroed obviously, lifted it up, and it's just spun around past 50. And I'm like, hold on a minute. Open the sling. It's the long one. It's the one I joint for. It's the biggest in the lake. It's one of the first fish that was stocked in the Dell. It's 50 pound plus. It came out a couple of weeks ago at 51. So anyway, zipped it up, tied it out, stoked the net with the landing net handle, the retention sling. And I've texted Jake, I'm like, Jake, it's the long one. I've got it, it's 50 plus, mate. Get round here as soon as you can. So anyway, bailiffs and all that come round, Jake and someone else, can't remember his name now, it was a while ago. And yeah, we've got it out and we've weighed it again and confirmed the weight, zeroed the slings, everything. Yeah, 50 pound 10, new PB, the long one. So that's it, it's the queen of the pond, I've done it. 3rd session, 1, 2, 3, 4 fish. I've had the big one. And I'm just blown away. I'm like, I haven't been angling for the best part of 3 years. On and off, I've done dibs and dabs, but yeah, I've done it. I've got a UK 50. So, does all the photos. Unfortunately, and I'm kicking myself, but I didn't actually get any film of it. Got some nice photos, slipped her back. From memory, she took a little while to go back as well, so I think that was my main aim at the time. So anyway, fish has gone back. Can see him fizzing on the spot. At this point, the rod's still in. Jake's gone to work anyway. I can see him fizzing on the spot, and I'm like, oh, I've got to get takes. I'm texting Wes, and I'm going, mate, they're still there. They're still there. I've just had the long one, and they're fizzing on the spot again. Don't do nothing, leave it, sit on your hands. Within 10 minutes, I'm fucking spomming and I have a bit of bait, 5 spoms over the top. Rod back out on the spot, and within 10 minutes, rattled off again. And on braid, the takes are savage. And these fish are just raring to go into the weed. Anyway, hooks into it, gets it in, and it was one of the stockies actually, but it was a new one, and it was a 32/8 fully. one of the best fish I've ever seen. It was just insane. Like, so there I am, I'm doing the pictures, put the fish back, self-takes, fish has gone back. And I'm sitting there having a cup of tea thinking to myself, I've done it. Like, I've done a Dell, that's it, I've had the 50, I've just backed it with a 30, and I've still got 2 nights. So, press repeat, I'd reel in at about midday, put some bait on a spot, leave the rods in for a couple of hours, I'd go for a walk around the pond, go down the clubhouse, talk to a couple of the other anglers on the road bank, and I'd put the rods out about 3 o'clock, and yeah, like clockwork, it just continued. Again, 5 o'clock, woke up to a take, again, felt really heavy, played it in. By this point, I'd cleared a little bit of the marginal weed, so I didn't have that problem after the long one. And it's got in the net, and I've lifted it up, and it's an absolute donkey again. In there, there's another fishy. Just gonna make a quick cup of tea, or coffee rather. Yeah, literally just woke up. I still feel like I'm half asleep, to be honest with you. Sun's coming up. It's all good. Back up on the scales, just in disbelief really. And it was actually the small twin, about £39 I think it was, which again is a new stocky, but it's pushing the £40 barrier, and they've both been named. There's 2 that look exactly the same. I'll tell you the story, don't worry. So anyway, it's a small twin, £39. So, done selfies, lovely. Slips her back within half hour. Rod's gone again, plays it in, gets it in the net, peels the net back. It's another fully. And it looks like a 30 again. I'm just blown away. Gets it on the scales, weighs it up, and it's actually one of the original fullies, 3312. I'm smiling like a Cheshire cat, I can't believe me luck. So, put some bait out after the photos, put the rod back out, and I actually, that day I received, it was weird, it was a little bit more cloudy, a little bit more, it wasn't roasting hot sun, and around about 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, one of my mates was just walking around into the peg to say well done, and the rod's rattled off. So I'm playing this fish, he's jumped in, knee deep in silt, and he's netted it, and he's opened it up, he's gone, Lee, you ain't gonna believe this. I'm like, what? He's like, it's another donkey. I'm like, you're kidding me? Nope, runs down there, peels the net back. I'm like, hold on, I've just had that. I said, that's the twin, it's a small twin. I've just put it back at 39. Gets it on the mat, and as I peel the net back, it's got a slightly different scale pattern on the wrist. So the twins, they are like mirrors of the same fish, bar on the tail of the wrist. One's got a couple scales, one's only got one. This one's got a different pattern. So I'm like, it's the other twin. Pulls it up, 42.8. I'm like, okay, let me get this straight. I've had a 50, a couple of 30s, a scrape of 40 at 39, and then I've just banked another 40. What's next? Like, what is going on? So anyway, I just kept pressing repeat. We put that fish back, reeled the rods in, put the bait out, went for a walk, came back around that afternoon, put the rods back out, and the last morning, I'm due to pack up, because you can only do 4 nights here, then you have to spend 24 hours away. And the rod's gone again, usual, it was just like clockwork. I mean, I'm gutted that I didn't have it in my head to get up and set a camera up, because I could have had every single take on film, because I knew exactly what time the rods was gonna go, because it did it for the past 3 days. And yeah, like I say, bundled that one in the net. This was the hardest fighting fish of the lot, absolute savage, beat me up, weed bed in the net, nearly broke the net. Just a savage fish. Put it up on the net, it was a common this time, known as cluster. 38.8 spawned out, usually 40. And yeah, that was my time, that was the session, over and done. And I walked off feeling like I'd done the place. That was it for me, I'd done the Dell in 3 sessions. Couldn't believe it. It's just been in the back of my head the whole time, what could be. And I've been keeping an eye on it, and this winter, cluster actually came out at 48. So if you remember back when I said that there's 350s in here, you've got the long one, which is pretty much nigh on 50 all the time. There's the number 2, which is what I've always wanted after seeing the pictures, which is the big stocky, which I don't know if it's been out this winter, but last time I'd known it to come out, it was about £48, so that should be 50. And like I say, cluster came out a few months ago at 47s, 48s as well. So again, 350s, and it's got the potential to throw a shock. So that was 2022. So like I say, it's February now. I'm rejoining this year, and like I say, we're going to do this film. And I've set some targets. So this is the Dell's most wanted list. Of course, that number one target for me, it's got to be the big stocky. Just look at that. Following on, it would be a recapture, but I'm not going to complain. The long one. And again, another recapture for me it would be, but over £40, I'd be happy. It's cluster. Next up's an original Dell 50, which now sits to high 30s to low 40s. It's the pretty one. And the next one, Scaly Bob, it's just one that I want in the album, mid 30 or not. Moving on, we've got a trio of 40s, started off with Nelson, an absolute brute of a 40-pounder. Album wouldn't be complete without a 40-pound common. We've got the wood carving. Next up's Baby Rudder, an absolute brute of a fish, almost near leather. And again, the same with Buster. The next one I've got down as an unnamed stocky, but I've actually been told it's called the special one. Two different sides to this fish, you'll see if we have it. Another unnamed one, but mid 30, and it's got to go in the album. Followed by a fish that I'm going to call the blackfish, one that Scott had, absolute minter. I mean, it ain't a bad list of fish to be aiming for, is it? If we can tick off the big stocky, I'll be over the moon. If we get 50 on film, it's the cherry on the top. Who knows? I could blank the entire season. I mean, it's not a runs water by any means, and it can get hard at times. But let's see how we go, eh? So that brings us up to today. Got down here this morning at, I think it's about 5:30, 5:45. Came in, did a walk around, nice and quiet, creeping around, because there is a couple of anglers on. There's a couple, one in the corner, one in the ramps, geezer in white bags, and I think car park as well. So anyway, creep round in the dark. Haven't seen anything, but it was flat calm this morning, and I'm just going to go off prior knowledge. So I've actually come round into the airfield. I'm in airfield 2, which is the swim that we did the damage in last year. Simply because I've just got an inkling that there might be fish around that zone, if there's any weed here. Like I say, I haven't been back since August, so I don't know. But we've got 2 nights ahead of us. We're in the swim. I'm all set up. So all that's left to do really is get the kettle on, sort the rods out, get them out, and just go from there really. We'll piece it together as we go. Technically the season, pardon me, technically the season doesn't start until April 1st. So this is a little bit of bonus fishing really, just to try and get in tune with the place. But I'm gonna hit it hard this year. I've actually been given permission by the missus to do nigh on every other weekend, work permitting. Obviously there is 3-week periods where I'm on call over the weekend, so I can't, but we'll slot in as much time as we can. I'm going to try and give you as much info as I can as well. And yeah, let's just see what we can do. So, plan for this session, I'm going to fish 2 on solid bags, and I'm going to fish 1 on a single. I might stick a couple of boilies over the top, but it will literally be an handful, a couple of boilies. And I'm just going to put them out in the zone, and we'll go from there. Like I said, I haven't seen anything. I have been watching the water, I've been setting up this morning, but there's a bit of a chop on now. We've got northeasterlies at the minute, so it is cold. It's been a while, but I'm back, like I say. So yeah, let's see what we can do. It's time to get the rods out.